Dublin are in new territory now going into this final, and they have to deal with the build-up. I think Pat Gilroy will deal with the build-up. He kept the guys under wraps in the build-up to the semi-final. You know, they have been impressive all year. The semi-final victory over Donegal, I don't think you can read into too much from a tactical perspective. Their game plan suits Kerry. They've made it difficult for them in the last two league meetings when they've matched up. And Kerry don't traditionally play a sweeper, which means Dublin will have afforded a bit more space in the forward line for the likes of Bernard Brogan and Alan Brogan. Something tells me, you know, the final could be a high-scoring shootout. But both Kerry have a high-scoring average, but they also have quite a high concession average as well, and Dublin will take advantage of that. So Dublin go into this final with every chance. They know the strengths that Kerry bring to the table. The semi-final will stand to them. It was a test of their character. They had to be patient. They've learned from every game that they've gone through this year, and they've been progressing. You know, up to the quarter-final. They played fantastic football in the quarter-final. They had to win ugly in the semi-final. You know, so they have a lot more game time under their belt. They've been pushed to the pin of their collar right throughout the championship, and they're going into this final in a good place. But obviously, Kerry have the big day match tradition that they're used to. The build up to this final, they'll be a lot more comfortable. Dublin will probably be a bit more nervy going in on final day. Kerry have been there, they've done it, they've won the final. So from a psychological advantage, Kerry probably have a 1 or 2 point lead starting the game. The concerns you'd have for Kerry is, you know, their run into this final. You know, they've had, their matches have been very spaced out. They had 2 games against Limerick which wouldn't have served much purpose for them. They got very little resistance. The Munster final was always going to be a damn squid, and I said it at the time that it was about getting back to Croke Park, and it was nearly a waste of time. Both teams were going to be back in the last 8. That was probably their biggest challenge. There was a lot of talk coming into that game that they needed to beat Cork to lay down a psychological marker. They played fantastic football in the first half. It was vintage Kerry, faded a bit in the second half. And you know, then came to Croke Park, won comfortably against Limerick, and we're always comfortable against Mayo as well. You know, Mayo did put up a good fight, but Kerry controlled the game in terms of possession and still won out by 9 points comfortably. So they haven't been pushed down the stretch, and they haven't met a team that will bring the physical element to the game like Dublin will. They haven't met a team as fit as Dublin. So there's a couple of advantages in Dublin's Dublin's way coming into this game. If I was to compare it to the 2009 team, no, I don't think they're as good, because they've yet to replace some of the big players that they lost. You know, Tommy Walsh, Ty Kennelly, Darragh O'Shea. They do have problems at the back. They have been opened up a lot at the back. We saw that Mayo had 3 or 4 goal chances. You got to put in the perspective, if Mayo had got 3 goals, Kerry still would have won the game. That's why I have a feeling it's kind of going to be maybe a high-scoring shootout. We should get a great, entertaining game of football. But Jack O'Connor, when their backs to the wall, Kerry come out fighting. And when there is criticism in the team, they tend to do a good job at solving them. Mark O'Shea can't be exposed to the space that he was exposed against Mayo. And you've got to wonder, will Kerry break from tradition? You know, finals are won by brave tactical decisions, and will Jack O'Connor break from tradition and maybe put somebody in at full back and play Mark O'Shea as a sweeper? Because they need to tighten up their defence, there's no doubt about it. Their midfielders come in for criticism right throughout the year, but in fairness, they have stood up and answered the questions. They competed well with Cork, they won the battle against Mayo. When you play Kerry, you've got to get a platform in midfield, because if they win enough possession in midfield, they get into their dangerous forwards, the Darren O'Sullivans, Declan O'Sullivans, Colin Coopers, and that's when they'll do damage. So it's going to be an intriguing battle. Dublin are tactically well set up to deal with Kerry. Kerry may have to tweak 1 or 2 things to deal with Dublin, and it's going to be a cracker. To call this final is difficult. Kerry, based on their tradition and what they have the potential to do in Croke Park, and the skill and flair of their forwards, you know, could have just too much for Dublin. But I think Dublin are the more progressive side, maybe the fitter side, and if this game comes, if Dublin can stay with Kerry into the last 5-10 minutes, I think Dublin will have the belief maybe just to hold out.